What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Blended Couple on Fire over here on the podcast land. Season 3, episode 21. Today, we're actually going to talk about the ugly truth of being a step parent. And that's coming up
right now.
Are you a Christian and you are looking to take your faith, your family, and your future to the next level?
Then this is the channel for you.
So good, happy Tuesday evening. I almost said Monday. I don't even know why I said Monday.
Don't say that.
No, don't go backwards in the week. Say Friday. Say something. My name is Josh. I'm one of your hosts here with the always gorgeous, always beautiful Miss Christy.
Hello.
How are you, my love?
I'm good.
Are
I'm
you
tired.
Tired?
Yeah.
Tell everybody you slept on the couch last night because you were bad. She's like, that's a joke. That's a complete. I would never sleep on the couch. If I was bad. Wow.
But I did sleep on the couch last night because I woke up and I feel bad because I have like a pinched thing by my shoulder blade and it was hurting so bad. I kept tossing and turning. I got up to take some ibuprofen and then I just went on the couch because I'm like, who knows how long I'm going to be awake. So
yeah, but I've noticed before too, when she wakes up in the middle of the night, if she's aching and something, she gets on her phone and I'm just like,
I haven't done
you'll
that.
never go back to sleep if you sit and play on your phone.
I haven't been doing that
for 4 hours. No, I don't think you have actually. No, but you have to remember,
I left my phone in the room last night actually when I got up.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm. It was next to my side of the bed the whole night.
Yeah, so we have a king-size bed, right? And we have 2 dogs. Now, they're not big dogs, but they act like big dogs, right? We have a Chihuahua, which can get to be about 7 feet long. And then, don't be yawning.
Sorry.
Stop that. And then we have a Beagle as well, and he's a nightmare anyway, because they're both old dogs, and so they take up a lot of room.
The Beagle is the worst.
He's the worst, and he's laying behind us on the floor right now, because he's got to be everywhere that Dad is. All right, so on today's episode, we're actually going to talk about the ugly truth of being a step parent. So, do you have anything you want to say before we get started, my babe?
No.
No?
If you offend easily, you might as well just shut it off now.
Yeah, so this is one of those kind of episodes, right? So this is one of those where we're kind of taking the gloves off. We're going to talk about some stuff that is just truth. It's just the reality of being a step parent. It's about stuff that people are like, oh, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't talk like that. It's like, we understand people don't want to talk like that, but the reality is we have to have some type of freedom to feel the way that we feel, and having an open conversation with your spouse is going to be one of the most important things for your blended family. So today we really want to jump into that. I was going to share the episode if you wanted to.
Yeah, you actually have to be, to heal the most, you have to be, or to let God transition you and take you to the next level, you actually have to be honest and open and transparent about your actual feelings and not pretend that they're not there. And I actually was thinking about that the other night about the church community or the Christian community a lot, is that people, us Christians, will walk around churches and out in the world and we actually will hide the way that we truly feel about something because people are like, you shouldn't feel that way, or you shouldn't act that way, or you shouldn't have said that. When if someone had the safety or the relationship with someone, anyone, that they could say, okay, I'm going to be open and honest with how I'm actually feeling because I don't really want to feel this way, but they need to get it out and they need to recognize that it's there and they're actually feeling it, and not try to be like, I shouldn't feel that way. I shouldn't feel that way. And then having anxiety about your anxiety because you have anxiety about something. It's ridiculous. We have to be able to say, this is actually how I truly feel. I need to pray about it. God already knows I feel this way. I need to be honest with him about it. And the more dishonest we are with ourselves, the more turmoil, internal turmoil that we're going to feel. If we just are like, no, I can't feel that way, so I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not even going to let myself recognize that I feel that way. And then it causes internal just turmoil about it. And it just blows my mind. Yes.
You get guilt. I've noticed, too, so ever since we've kind of, started in this direction of blended families, really talking about blended families. I mean, we've been a blended family for years, but ever since we started talking about it and we say stepkids, people are like, oh, you shouldn't say that. And it's like, no, it's okay that we say that. We feel comfortable and healthy with the way that we address our children and the way that our children address us. And everybody's circumstances are different. We shouldn't be like, you shouldn't talk like that. You shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't think like that. And it's like, it's okay that we talk about these things, and that, I'm not saying you should go and be mean about stuff ever, but I think that it's really healthy to say, you know what, you want to call your stepchildren, you want to call them your bonus kids. Great, fantastic,
Yeah.
if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But don't get upset because we
Someone
choose
else.
something different for ours, and so it's not about like hurting people's feelings and stuff. So it's about really having healthy communication between two parents. Really, your spouse is really what this show's honestly going to be about today. So.
Well, because it's what they're taught. Like, people say racism is taught, like children don't walk up to other children and think bad about them because it's projected on them. And so from the time that we've got together and we've told our kids, you're my stepkid, I'm your stepmom, I'm your stepdad, it's never been a bad thing.
Yeah.
So it's not looked at as something, a negative connotation, is that the right word, in our family. It just isn't. We're a family, stepkids, biological kids, and we're a family unit. That's what we are, and it's normal.
Yeah, so it's funny, right? So if you know me, I'm all of 5'9" with shoes on, okay? So I'm not a tall man, right? So but my son and the two step boys, they're all basically 6 foot and over, okay? They're monsters compared to me. And so Christy's boys have always called me Big Josh, which is kind of funny now because I am no longer Big Josh, right? I guess I'd be considered Old Josh or Older Josh. But
Jay.
So Christy's boys have always called me Big Josh. That's just what they've always called me, right? Because I have Josh, which is my son, and then Big Josh. So that's me. And it's really funny that it's become just how I'm known amongst even all their friends. As I'm walking out of Kroger the other day, and one of Garrett's friends is driving by, and I hear Big Josh, So I already know that it's not my stepsons. I already know that it's probably one of their friends, which is kind of funny. So they've never called me dad, and I don't expect them to ever call me dad.
Right.
They have found a term that's comfortable with them, and that's how they refer to me. And not all parents are okay with that. They're like, no, this is the dad of this house, and you're going to call them dad. And I just think that's horrible. You're putting more weight and excess stress on your kids. That's not fair. They didn't want you as dad. They didn't want me as dad. They have a dad. And I think that's a hard thing for kids.
Because he's not their dad.
I am not.
He's not. He's their stepdad. And that's okay.
Or bonus dad.
Or bonus dad, whatever. But he's not their dad.
Yeah.
And they can look at him as a fatherly figure. Maybe one day they'll grow in to actually think of him as another dad in their life. I'm sure they already do. But the reality is he's not their dad, So, and I'm not his kid's mom.
Yep.
No matter how much I would love to be. That's not what God has planned for our lives. God had planned, this is where we're at now. We got divorced. We're together, and God already knew this was going to happen. I'm his kid's stepmom, and he's my kid's stepdad. That's the story that we're in right now.
Yep. So let's dive right in. All right. We're going to hit you with number one. Number one. Yeah, you feel powerless.
You do as a step parent, you do in certain instincts. And that's why Josh and I talk so much when it comes to blending your family, that your marriage, your personal relationship with God should be first and foremost, because once you have that, everything funnels through that. So God changes your heart. God changes your perspective. He softens things for you. He's the one that does that, not you. And then next should be your marriage. So you are feeling powerless as a parent, as a step parent, because if his son wanted to do something and he went over to his mom's house, talked about his mom, and his mom agrees, and he comes over here and talks to his dad and his dad agrees. Well, there is a third with step families. There is a third thing. And that's what sucks as being a step parent, because if he's like, no, I agree. This is my kid. This is something that we're going to do for my kid. It's a fine balance with blended families, because the marriage is supposed to come first. So, okay, let's talk this out. This is why I don't agree. This is why, and then, but ultimately, as a step parent, when it comes to his kids, ultimately it's his decision for his kids. So it is a very, very fine balance. So you can feel powerless, in that situation as a step parent, because it's like, okay, they're not technically my kids. And you do have a human nature. You have to protect yourself to a certain degree, because if you just really want to get so upset as if they're your biological kid and you have 100% legal and say over them, and you want to fight to that, you're causing yourself so much grief, because technically you don't have the say over it. It's ultimately your spouse's decision to honor, and you guys come to a compromise that also will suit the ex living in another home. It's very hard as a step parent. Very, very hard.
Well, and the thing is too, and I know I can speak for so many people when it comes to this. When you have a child, you feel like, okay, I'm finally have something that I'm in control of, right? Like this is mine.
You think.
Right. And you think to yourself like, okay, this is my child, right?
Yeah,
Nobody tells me what my child can and
Very
can't
possessive.
do. Very, right?
Mhm.
You feel like you've earned that. Like this
Mhm.
is mine more than anything else, more than
Mhm.
a home, more than anything, right? You feel
Mhm.
like, okay, this is mine. But when you become part of a blended family
Mhm.
and you see another child in the house that's supposed to be in the same position as your child, you feel like now you don't have control over that, and you
Right.
feel a lot of tension in between yourselves, right? So
Right.
punishing is a really, really hard thing when it comes to stepkids, right? You feel completely powerless because you're like, I want to snatch this kid up and I want to smack his butt, but my spouse doesn't agree with that, and that's not how they want to punish their child. And you feel very, very, very powerless because now you're like, okay, they're not doing your spouse isn't doing it right. Your kids these kids are going to grow up and be horrible kids because your spouse doesn't agree with the way that you want to punish. But the reality is you are powerless to that. The best that you can do is get on the same level with your spouse and say, okay, is there some type of agreement we can come to? But even then, it's Christine needs to punish her kids, and after a while, don't get me wrong, when you're blended for years and years and years, that kind of shifts a little bit. Like, you can start having each other take over punishing roles, because now you agree, you've earned trust, within the family, with each other, with your children. But in the beginning, you can't do that. And that gets to be very, 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 very frustrating because you're completely powerless when it comes to that position.
Yeah. And you need to understand, as a step parent, you have to understand there is an innate forgiveness, loyalty, need, and want for biological children to have their parents love them. You can have children, myself included, that grow up and with not that great of bio parents, but still yearn and crave for your mom and dad. You see it in adopted kids all the time.
Yeah.
They're adopted. They have a great home. They want to know their parents. So you have to remember, as a step parent, you have to tread lightly, because the bio parent can be the bad guy, can do these punishments, can do all of these things. And the kids we as children, I'm a child, you're a child, but kids will ultimately usually forgive that parent because they want that parent to love them. But step parents, you don't get that same grace. No. They will, if they decide to hate you, it's a lot easier to hate you than it is their parent. And that's just the truth.
Yeah, that's why understanding the way the power balance works within the step family is super important. That's why lowering your pride in the beginning is so important. Number one, your kids, they didn't make this choice. We made this choice, right? The parents made this choice. Like, if our kids could pick anybody in the world to be best friends with or be brothers with, it would have never been each other. Now, our two oldest boys now are absolutely best friends. We couldn't have thought of that even being possible in the beginning. It was horrible. But the thing is, they didn't choose that, right? And over time, things worked itself out, of course. But we're powerless to this. Our children are powerless to a lot of these things that are going on. And we have to understand, like, the only way that we can get through a lot of this stuff is really discussing on a very, on the bottomest of all levels with our spouses about how we feel about it. Like, I feel really powerless in this position right now. Like, I don't like the way your son's talking to you. Like, I do not like the way your son's talking to you. And I don't think that he should talk to you like that. I want to step in. I want to do something about it, but I know that I can't do that. Right. And I know that I have to consult my spouse and say, hey, I don't like how this is going, and I don't like the way that he's talking to you. And I love you and I care about you, and I need this to change, and whether she wants to allow her sons to talk to her that way or not, or if I want my daughter or my son to talk to me that way, ultimately becomes up to me. Because if Christy steps in, like Christy said, she's the person now that's hated. It's not me, because my kids will forgive and forget, just like her kids.
You have to be very self-aware, and you really have to lower your pride and listen to your spouse too, because as a biological parent though too, if his son came up and talked to him a specific way, there's a lot more grace glasses that goes through.
Acceptance to it.
And if my son or one of my sons talked to him that way, it's not going to be viewed the same or received the same. Yep. And so you have to be very self-aware. You have to be able to lower your pride for your spouse as well and say, okay, let's think about this logically. If another kid would have done this to me, would I have reacted the same way? I mean, it's very, very good to keep that balance in there, because the lines get blurred easy, and it's so quick to forget that I wouldn't have gotten mad at my own biological son about this, but I am definitely mad at this kid.
So true.
You know, so and those are honest feelings. And the only way that things are going to get better, that God's going to really help your heart and help you keep your pride, Lord, and all those things, is being honest about
and open
what they are. Yes.
Yeah, and being open.
And him and I have a very open, I have said things to him, with honest feelings that I have been feeling about his kids and him with me, that I would never even say out loud to someone else, because they would be like, oh my gosh, you said that about his kid. But him and I have a very safe relationship
and understanding.
And nothing is said to be malicious or disrespectful or hurtful, like
or
a
jetty.
name calling. Yeah. It's like, this is how I'm feeling right now about this kid. You know, and we are very accepting of that, and we talk through it. So it's a very safe relationship. It didn't always get that way, but we had to work at it.
Yeah, and it is hard, which is going to lead us into the second point. But that right there alone, that types of conversations to have is something you have to work for. Like, you have to work hard for. Like, the last thing I want to do is hear Christy say something that I don't like that she's saying about my kids, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. Like, she doesn't want to hear me talking about these things because she doesn't feel the same way.
Right.
You know? But what
I
she
don't
does
expect him to.
Right. And that's exactly right. But what she wants, though, is she wants to hear her husband, and she wants to understand her husband, and she knows that I don't come at it in a malicious way. So it's important. So leads us into the second thing. Ooh, ready for it? You get to judge their kids.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I was saying. Like, not necessarily even how they talk to me, but let's say his son went out and did something, and my son went out and did the same thing. Let's say they screwed up or got in trouble, and it was like a year or two apart. His son, I would be more quick to be like, the kid. You know, and my kid, I would be more like, oh man, I hope I can help him fix this. And we're just a lot quicker to judge that. Or if something really good happens for his son, I'm just like, of course it happens to his kid. You know, my kid always is getting the short end of the stick, you know, and that is the way that we think, because it's still in our brains. It's still two separate things. It's my kids and his kids. Yep. So you have to fight against that. That's human nature. You have to fight against that and really, okay, God would want me to be happy for this person, you know, that these good things are happening for them and all of those things.
Yeah. And the judging thing it's brutal. Because it's truth within yourself. You know, it's like, I have these opinions and stuff. Now, I'm not going to go around and tell Christy all these negative things, but at the same time, I can be honest with her and be like, you know, and sometimes that does get said, like, that just seems unfair. Or, you know, this your son gets, you know, all the second chances. And it's like, my son never gets second chances, you know, and it's like, we get to feel that way, right?
He never abuses the first.
Well, right. But then that gets an attitude thrown at it, right? And that's just the truth of it. It's just how it is, right? But the thing is, you know, we can be judgy. We're going to be judgy because now we kind of get into a comparison mode. You know, we've talked to a recent couple, and they were like, you know, the one lady, or the one person was like, you know, my kids are this way, and then the other person was like, my kids are this way, and it's like they're polar opposites. Well, we know when that happens because we've had this happen. You know, you think to yourself, like, this is good and that's bad. This is good and that's bad, and vice versa. You know, well, I've been dealing with this my whole life, and it's good because my kid's, you know, outspoken and they're always this. And it's like the other person's like, yeah, but my kid's calm and doesn't say much, and that's good too. And you kind of get this judgment about each other's kids. And that's
because you love your kids.
You do. No matter, even as bad as they can be.
Yeah.
Like, they can be rotten people, and you'd be like, they're so good. Like, my kids are the greatest. Like, no, they're not.
You know that they're not the greatest, but you know that no one's good. So it makes you feel like you have to love them even more because other people aren't not going to love them enough.
Yeah, so true.
So you have to love them more.
You need to judge other people.
Yeah, and it's like, I get like, ooh, yeah, I get like that. I was going to say something, though, and I forgot. If you ask him, I am probably even more so than him. I wanted things exactly fair. Like, exactly.
Yeah.
And nothing made me come to realize more than when we got into this blended family, because his kids from his ex-wife's side of the family, her mom used to buy all his kids all these clothes all the time, shoes. So his kids were constantly getting new clothes and new shoes. And it's like on our end, we were trying to spend the exact same amount on all the kids, on everything. But then his kids were ending up with all this new stuff all the time.
Extra.
And finally, I said something to him. I'm like, I was like mad. I'm like, I can't take it anymore because my kids don't have new shorts or new shoes or new shirts like when they need them. And your kids are just constantly getting all these new things. And it's not fair, because the other side, their dad's side and their dad isn't doing that for them.
Yeah.
And it was awesome because he was like, okay, let's go out and get them some stuff. You're right. Let's go get them some stuff. They need new clothes and all of those things too. And that was awesome of him because I would be more so the person like, no, it's not our problem what the other side's doing. Like we have to, within our family unit, we have to keep it fair, all of these things. Yeah. And it worked out so good that he's not so as cut and dry as me, because if the roles were reversed and I was the cut and dry, and I still remain the cut and dry person, I don't think the scales would be, he's softened me up. Let's just put it that way.
It
because I wanted to keep it fair too.
Yeah.
Even at the expense of my own kids. Sometimes when it comes to clothes and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes.
Until I got real mad.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we want what's most fair for our kids, even if they have a small leg up, an advantage. Like, that makes us feel like, okay, I want my kids to win a little bit. I want my kids this way. And so we judge the situation to make it work in our favor and to make us feel comfortable in favor. And I always tell Christy, too, and I know she laughs about this, but a lot of times we do things, and it's not because it's the kids want it or because the kids think it's fair. It's because it makes Christy feel good, right? And that's the truth. That's what we do.
We just said that over the weekend. We said something.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what we were talking about. And I'm like, I don't care. It makes me feel better. So that's all that matters.
And we do that. We project ourselves onto the situation, right? And we do that. So we overcomplicate it. We overjudge everything that's going on within our family with the exes, like, oh, I know every time you talk to your ex, and whether that's true or not, we're judging that situation and just assuming that's the way that it is because of everything else that we have going on eternally. So I just think it's so important that, that we understand and say that it's okay that the way that we feel is sometimes judgy. Not that it's okay that we do judge, but it's okay to talk about the way that we feel. And I think that's what's important.
Because that's the only way it's going to change.
Yeah.
Like, if I tried to pretend I didn't feel that way, then I'm being dishonest even with myself. And then it caused inner turmoil. Like I said, it's best to be like, no, I do feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way. I need to pray about it. Yep. I need to talk to a trusted person, which in our case, it's an amazing thing because we are each other's trusted person. Talked it through with one another, try to get a different perspective about it because we do look at things so very differently, and it helps. We want to have that other perspective. We want to feel better about it. We want to look at things better, and so we embrace the difference when it comes to those things. Yep. For the majority of the time. Yeah,
we try to because ultimately we want our family to be happy, we want our marriage to be stronger. Mm. We want the relationship between us because we've learned over the year, even especially because of recovery, being in recovery, we've learned that, the strength of ourselves and the strength of each other is only going to strengthen our kids and our family. And so the more that we can be open and honest with the way that we feel, right? Not in a malicious way, but in an honest way, and say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling a little judgy about this right now. And this is the way that I feel about it. I think it's unfair, And then Christy's like, Josh, it's not unfair. This is not an unfair thing. I know you think that it is, but it's not unfair. Well, it feels unfair to me. And that's judging in the beginning. But I'm like, she understands that I'm not trying to be mean and malicious. She just knows that I'm just trying to express the way that I feel about it in the situation. And she's not getting defensive. And I think that's a big thing in blended families. It's easy to get defensive and say, you don't think like that or talk like that about my kids. My kids are perfect. Christy and I have had this conversation about one of my kids, okay? Like, he is not as perfect as you like to think that he is, And it's like, okay, that's an honest opinion on her behalf that I don't like, right? But it's the truth. Like, I do feel that way, right? I do feel that way. And I need to say, hey, it's okay that he's not, right? It's okay that our kids aren't perfect. It's okay, whether I think it or not. My wife has every opportunity and right to feel the way she does about it, whether I like it or not. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong?
And it's or not.
Wow.
Because it's whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
Or not. He doesn't like it.
No, I don't like it.
But that's okay.
I don't. And so we live and we learn, and we go through this getting bumps and bruises, but we understand that never have I ever and ever will I ever say anything cross to Christy. Like, that is a covenant that I've made with myself, and that she knows that. So she knows that I never speak with harm. I never want to say things with harm. And I know that about her. Now, she gets mad differently than I do. Right? And she's a little sharper with things, but she's never said anything mean to me or called me anything ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think she ever would. So, and I know that she has no maliciousness about her and wants that towards me. So when we're talking about being a step parent, it's not like it's me and my kids against her and her kids. It's never that.
But it'll be easy for you to quickly revert to that. That's why it's so important to be self-aware.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
And Josh and I were actually talking the other day that we should do, because it all starts with you and God in your own personal growth. And we were actually talking that we should do a podcast about like the 12 steps of personal growth and how that affects your marriage and you overall in everything you do. Being a parent, being a spouse, being a friend, being a member of society. It's so important because the 12 steps really make you self-grow. And you really don't have a choice in the matter if you are properly working the steps. And ultimately, when you come out on the other side, you continue working them, but you embrace the suck, and you are really more awakened to the things that you need to work on and really open to God convicting you and pulling these things up. And it just makes you ultimately a better human being.
That's the one thing it is about recovery that's so amazing is it's not amazing because you go into recovery, but the thing is that you learn in recovery is you have something that was debilitating in your life, and now you learn how to remove that debilitating thing, and you learn how to be stronger because of the thing, and then you learn how to apply all this awesome stuff you've learned about all the other facets of your life, and it's just an incredible thing. So, like most of we run a program at our church, a ministry called Celebrate Recovery, and it's not just for addicts, right? It's for anybody that has any type of hurt, habit, or hang up. And this is the thing. Everybody should go to it. Everybody should go to it.
And everybody that has came has said that.
Yeah. And they believe in that. Why? Because it teaches you how to handle any type of hurt, habit, or hang up that's in your life, which we all have. And I think that's such a great point that she says, it is the 12 steps. It is community, but it is being focused on understanding that we need to grow personally, which means that we get comfortable sharing our feelings and saying that, I don't need to feel guilty and bad about the way that I feel, which is this number 2 that we talked about, is these judgy feelings. Like, we sit in group every week and we talk about, maybe some guys do open up and say, hey man, I got this super judgy attitude against all these people, and they get to get it out. And that's so important that we get to do that.
But it's 2 things too. Like, you recognize when you feel that way, and then you also start recognizing when you need to mature a little bit in your feelings, or what you are feeling is okay and it is recognizable, and you need to be strong and confident in feeling that way and not let codependency sway or make you try to feel differently. But a lot of times that's not the thing. A lot of times people want to just be like, this is okay that I feel this way. It's okay. I'm not going to feel any other way. And they're not open to thinking like, okay, maybe you need to grow up a little bit. Maybe you need to mature a little bit. Maybe God's trying to take you to a different level and you're just really wanting to hang on to the infantile side of you and not grow. And you have to recognize that. Yeah,
which is pride. My dog's over here hacking. No, Mark, we're not going to repeat the last 5 minutes. There's a rewind button. But the third thing.
Mark, you're so funny.
He is compromise. And that's usually through grit teeth.
To start, it is.
It is.
I think with anything, compromise starts to get easier and easier and easier the more that you do it. No one wants to swallow their pride. No one. I always think of that movie that's called with Sandra Bullock and her husband, Tim McGraw's the husband, and they adopt that black football player.
Oh, The Blind Side.
Yes. And she's standing in their bedroom door and she says something like, you're right. And he's like, ooh, how did that taste? And she's like vinegar. That's what it reminds me of every time.
Really?
Because no one wants to swallow their pride and do it. And he does it much more graciously than I do. In the beginning, that's why I'm so grateful for him. In the beginning, he didn't, and I didn't. So we both didn't. And then over time, I have learned, but I've learned at a much slower pace than he has learned. And he does everything faster. So he's faster. He's came to that conclusion a lot quicker than me. So it'll take me a lot longer to swallow my pride than he does.
You do it though. It's not
I
like
do.
you don't. You know,
I do.
you always come around.
Yeah.
You always do. You never hang on just
No.
to hang on.
I want to. I'll sit there sometimes and I'll just be like, I am not doing it this time. I'm not, God. I'm not. I know you want me to, but I'm not gonna. No. And then he'll be like, but Christy,
Yeah.
you know, do you really want your marriage? Is it really that more important than your marriage? And are you really going to allow you guys to go fighting for the next 2 weeks or not talking to each other? Are you holding on to this little root of bitterness? Is it really worth it? And I'm like, no, it's not. But right now, no. You know, so.
It is, but at the same time, I think it's so important in marriage that you don't throw things in people's faces, either in your spouse's face. So, you know, if Christy never comes around on things, or if I don't ever come around on something, you know, where we're trying to compromise on something, and you know, and Christy makes a really good point, and I don't want to accept that point. You know, I'm just like, no, I want you to be wrong. You know, okay, for example, and this is kind of off topic of compromise, but let me just explain to you. So over the years of having a pool, Christy has always said to me,
I knew you were going to tell this story.
No,
I was thinking it in my head. I'm like, I'm going to tell this story. I was going to tell it anyway.
telling on myself. So over the years, Christy gets sick and tired because I always get
he ruins clothes.
I always get chlorine on my clothes because I'm the pool boy. Okay, I'm the one that does all the pool stuff at the house, right? So I will always get frustrated. I'm like, okay, I got to put chlorine in the pool, and I never change my clothes, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna be super careful, right? And it always ends up happening. Well,
he ruins them.
So I had this really, really all dark blue with just a white Nike swoosh t-shirt, brand new t-shirt on it, and I'm going out to dump chlorine in the pool, and I'm like, I don't feel like going inside and changing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be super careful. I'm going to be like mega careful. I'm going to hold the gallon way over the edge. I'm going to be like super careful, right? So I'm doing it, and I got done. I'm like, yeah, you know, it's good. Get it. So I got inside, and I went into the bathroom, and I look in the bathroom, and I had this single little dot directly in the middle of the shirt.
Right
Boom.
under the swoosh.
Yep. It's directly in the middle. Almost looks like it's supposed to be there, but it's not. So I'm like, of course, you know, Christy's going to say something. So Christy comes home from work, and before she has an opportunity to notice my shirt, I said, okay, I have a confession. Okay.
No.
What did I say?
You're like, would you like a really good I told you so moment?
Oh, yeah, that's what I said.
And
yeah.
I'm always like, yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah, I do.
I'm like, okay. And then I told her the story, right? And she's like, oh. I'm like, I know.
And now, I'm not kidding you. This is what frustrates me. You want to ruin your clothes? Wear them still. Okay, the thing about it is he ruins them, and then he refuses to wear them. So
I have it on. I actually have it on right now.
No one can see it. Okay, yeah, show the little dot, though.
Let me see if anybody can see the dot.
There.
Where's
the thing?
it?
Right there.
There it is, right there. Not that anybody cares. Okay, this is the shirt. Okay, I wore it for a reason, apparently. But that's just the thing, right? I know that she's not going to be like, oh, you're an idiot, you stupid man, and all this stuff I already feel.
I'm just like,
right? She's not going to throw it in my face.
He's stubborn.
Just be careful
He does what he wants.
throwing those rocks at those glass houses. There's all kinds of stubbornness going on in our house. My point is that compromise is a really, really hard thing to do. It is an absolute challenge alone in any situation, any type of relationship, much less being in marriage with step family. So as a step parent, knowing that you have to change. And I told somebody this the other day. I'm like, you know what you absolutely brought with you from your last marriage is yourself. And if you change zero from your last marriage coming into this marriage, you're going to have all of the same problems. And that's really hard for a lot of people to admit because they think it wasn't me the problem. They were the problem. We're all a problem to some degree. Mm-hmm. And if we're not willing to back ourselves down and say, okay, I need to start bending and compromising, and that's an ugly thing we have to do because we have to tell ourselves like, okay, I may be wrong. Even though it may only happen 5 out of 150 times, you know, some of us aren't as wrong as often. But you can still be wrong, you know, and that's just the truth. So we get completely sold on that we know exactly what's going on. So we decide that I'm not compromising. These are my kids. This is the way that I live, and I'm not making any changes.
Well, the thing that has helped me a lot too is leadership. And I think I've even told him this story. People have asked me before, like, when you go into a situation, how do you handle conflict resolution so well? And I have said over the years, I have went into every single situation, whether I believe I'm 100% right, no, I'm 100% right, or whatever, with the possibility that I'm wrong. Yeah. Because if I'm right, I don't have anything to worry about. So I can go in with the possibility that I could be wrong. I could be looking at the situation wrong. I need to hear their side of the story. I need to be open-minded to it and really bring it in, and then have all the facts, be clear-headed, and then move forward and say, okay, well, in this situation, I'm actually thinking that this is the way that we should have handled it. Or I then don't have to eat crow, which I hate doing that more. So I would rather be able to look at the person and say, you're right. I handled that wrong, or you're right, I should have done this. I'd much rather do that than sit and hang on to it and hang on to it and hang on to it and then turn around only everyone knows that I'm wrong and then have to eat crow at the end and be
move out of the country and everything else that goes along with that.
So I always want to go into a situation with the possibility that I'm wrong. And I bring that into our marriage too, not as gracefully as I do at work.
Yeah, it's hard.
But I do try to say, okay, let me hear him out for a minute. A lot of the times it is because he is right a lot of the times. And a lot of times I just don't want him to be right. I'm like, I don't want you to be right this time.
But I have a really hard time admitting when I'm wrong, or I try to manipulate even my own mind into trying to over-explain something and convince her the way that the way that I meant it was the right way. And so it takes a lot of backing down. I mean, we've gotten a huge argument, I don't know, like 6 months ago or something. Remember, we were out on the couch. I don't even remember, but we were going back and forth, and we were getting this heavy argument about, I don't even remember what it was about, but it was about, she's like, you're not listening to me. You're just not listening to me. And I'm like, I am listening to you, but I was listening to her the way that I wanted to listen to her, not the way that she was trying to tell me. And that's a hard thing. That's why compromise is so important, is we have to think of ourselves like, okay, what's my goal in this family? Am I trying to have the most successful marriage and most successful family that I possibly can? I've already failed once in whatever fashion that was. Whatever your responsibility was, it didn't work, right? And you now have a new opportunity in a new family to do it right, to get it right, to maybe have an opportunity to impress your children and stepchildren in such a way that they'll go on and never get divorced or never have a step family.
Break the cycle.
Yeah, to break that cycle, So what is your ultimate goal? And if that means that you need to lower your pride and say, okay, I really need to compromise on some of this stuff. I don't like it and I may not agree with it, but I need to compromise. And that's what we need to do. And I think that's so hard. It's so hard already in marriage, much less when you're compromising about things that aren't your kids. I mean,
that's why the divorce rate for second marriages, if it includes kids, is higher than first marriages.
Over 70%.
That's why it's so much higher.
It's ridiculous.
Because people don't want to lower their pride. People don't want to put their marriage first above their kids because it's a blended family. Yeah. And they don't want to see. They don't want to offer that grace. They don't want to be honest with themselves that they are viewing the other kids differently than their kids. And they view them through rose-colored glasses compared to black glasses. I don't know. But it's... People don't want to do that. And I think it's a lot easier once you've already gotten a divorce to be like, oh, I've already got divorced once.
It's like there's an escape route.
Yeah. And it's and
you cannot live
and that's
way.
Why kids throw in a whole nother gamut in blended families. They throw in a whole nother gamut and we get so territorial, like Josh was saying in the beginning, like it's our property. Our kids are our property. And we are not going to allow this marriage to make my kids feel this way. Yeah. And what I've realized now that we've been together for almost 11 years is our kids are 19, 19, and 17. Jordan's 24 and moved out. She's married.
Yeah.
So when I say kids now, I actually think of the three boys because they're all still at home. So 19, 19, and 17. What I'm thinking now is we're at the tail end in all those things that we fought about and, really butted our heads against. If we would have gave up back then, now they're all just non-existent. It doesn't make a difference. Hockey, in the price of hockey,
I was going to talk about that,
makes absolutely no difference to where we are now. None. Or are my kids not having the same amount of clothes as his kids makes absolutely no difference at all. And that's why you have to be willing to work through those, compromise, be self-aware and honest with how you're actually feeling and allow one another to be honest with how you're feeling.
Yeah, and we've shared this on a show before. So, years ago when Josh was about 10 years old, he's 19 now, which Christy said. He wanted to get involved and play hockey. One of his best friend's dad was a hockey coach. So I'll give him all this gear. So we're like, okay, this is a cheap sport. No, Okay, we learned all the hard way, right? So he ended up joining, and then all of a sudden it was like, my son wants to do this. And it was early on in our relationship. And I said, well, if this is what my son wants to do, this is what my son's going to do. And Christy's like, Josh, we can't afford this. I'm like, well, we need to make it work. And as awesome of a woman she is, and she was much more hard-nosed then than she ever is now. She was like, okay.
I wasn't
right.
okay at first. Let's just be honest.
But you did it though.
I did.
She compromised. She didn't agree. She didn't believe. She didn't want. She didn't think it was fair. We had to drag her 2 boys around. They were little. They couldn't just stay at home. They had to go to all the games with us. They had to go to all the practices with us. They didn't get an opportunity in that, and it was very one-sided, and what did she do? She compromised. She did it anyway.
But that is an instance, if you're honest, as a step parent, I really didn't have a choice. So I had to make the choice as far as compromise goes to either have a good attitude about it or have a bad attitude. And if I would have had a bad attitude, it would have affected little Josh. It would have affected my kids. My kids would have then developed a bad attitude about having to go, which they never did. Because if I would have put that, my kids would have followed my suit. So that's when I had that choice. And now looking back, it was a good choice. Like, we did make it work.
We did.
And we had great seasons, and the kids, all 3 kids had a great time, and it was great.
See, and she has more peace about it now than what I do. I have more guilt about it because I've grown and I've realized, like, okay, that was pretty selfish, Like, I'm glad that Josh was able to do that because it was amazing. But at the same time, at what expense? And that fairness thing is hard in the beginning. Like, and I always try to be super fair. Christy always tries to be super fair. And I didn't see it as being unfair in the beginning. I seen it the way that I wanted to see it. And that was giving my kid something that I felt like he deserved to have. And that's a hard thing. That's why we have to really understand what compromise really means. So over the years, Christy's, oldest boy got a car. His grandma gave him a car. We drove all the way to Kentucky to get this car, come all the way back. Kid has a thing for 3 weeks. Gets in a car accident and totals it. So what do? And I didn't agree. We went out and we bought him another car, right? He got a second vehicle. He got one given to him, and then we went out and paid for another one. I didn't agree with that, but hey, this is what Christy wanted to do. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. This is what we do. And that's part of the compromise. I don't have to agree with it.
And I tried to sell it. I'm like, well, we bought Josh a car.
Yes.
We didn't have to buy Garrett a car.
Correct.
It was given to him. So we need to buy him a car, which isn't fair. Either way, they each had a car.
Yeah.
But Garrett still has that second car.
He does.
Which is shocker.
Absolutely.
He's a bad driver.
He's a horrible driver. I mean, there's more dents and scrapes on this thing. Okay, so not too long ago, he's like, I have something dragging on the bottom of my car. I'm like, okay, let's go out and take a look at it. I'm like, dude, why is your car running so loud? And he's like, oh, I ran over a shovel and it dragged it down the road for a while. But it came out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid is crazy. His bumper's dragging, all this other stuff. But he doesn't say anything about it. He drives it, right? He drives it. He will drive this thing until the wheels come off. And the point is, though, is we have to compromise, whether we agree or don't agree. Yeah. Like Christy said, she said it so beautifully. She's like, did I really have a choice? No. But now my reaction to that is my choice. Do I want to affect my kids and everybody else in the family because I have a bad attitude and because I don't agree with it? Is it harming anybody? It's not harming anybody. It's a compromise. And we have to decide on whether we're going to choose our family and our marriage over being upset about this compromise. Mm-hmm. It's so important that we do that.
It is. I mean, both of us have made compromises in the relationship, and in the long run, it's been worth it. It's not like we look back and be like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have compromised. I wish I would have really dug my heels in and really threw up a stink and really had us fighting for like at least 6 months. No one feels that way. They just don't.
No, and I think, we talk about the ugly truth of step parenting, and the reality of that is you get to a point, hopefully you get to a point to where you challenge each other with being competitive, highly competitive, to say, no, I'm going to compromise more. No, I'm going to compromise more.
He started it. And he told me one time, and it made me so mad because I'm like, ooh, he's like, our relationship is worth more than that. I'm like, he's so right. But I want to be right in this instance, and I don't want to drop my attitude, but then he's right about that. So if I don't drop my attitude, I'm not saying our relationship is worth more, but then if I drop my attitude, I'm just doing what he wants me to do.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. But there is a friendly compromises do come through friendly competition,
Yeah.
and my
am
goal.
better. I'm a better Christian than him.
She actually is.
I'm a better step parent than him.
She pretty much is. She is. And I'm okay with that. And I feel like I'm winning because I get to be part of that. I get to be part of all the better. And that's a great thing.
He's more humble than me.
I win again. No, but it's funny when we talk about the ugly truth of parenting is there is a lot of ugliness that we don't like, but ultimately it's always under our control of how we want to handle it. It's our perspective. It's the way that we say, okay, who's going to win in the long run here? Is my kid's going to win, or is her kid's going to win? Is she going to win? Are we going to win? How is this all going to work out? And I think it's really easy to come from one marriage to the next marriage and say, well, this is the way that I've always done it, so this is the way I'm always going to do it. And especially when we're talking about people in their 30s and 40s getting remarried, we get to be very stubborn and set in our ways and say we've earned our stripes. And so the ugly truth of step parenting is knowing that it's ugly and that it's most likely you personally are the one that's going to have to change. Yeah. And that's a hard thing. None of us want to hear that, but it's really the thing that's going to work the most.
Yeah. I mean, that's what God wants you to do. God wants you to take the higher road. And in your marriage, if each of you are trying to take the higher road, it's really hard to put your kids beneath the marriage in a blended family. It really is, because you want to ensure that they stay at the front, because you already feel like they're probably not loved, or it might be their fault, or you have guilt about the way they're feeling, and you want to make sure this person's not going to love them as much as I love them. And that's the truth. He's not going to love them the same way as I love them. He just isn't. And so you want to protect that. You want to ensure that they know that, and you want to let him know you're not going to love them the same way as me. So you need to let me take the lead on this, but it's also really, really good in blended families because you can actually get an outside perspective from someone that can tell you, like, your kid is actually getting really to be entitled. And he can tell me that from an outside non-bio parent standpoint. Yeah. And it can really open my eyes to things that maybe we need to change within our family, and then I need to deliver to my kids. Mm-hmm. So because nuclear families don't get that. Like, nuclear families are like, they usually both are blinded to the same things. Like, our kids are amazing and we give them everything they want, and they have these little brats walking around. And even in church, people are like, don't go around their kids. Their kids are awful. Yeah. Type of thing. You have a step parent that can be like, your kids are awful. Like, what are we going to do to fix this so our marriage survives? Yeah. It's if you look at it as a good thing, it's good,
No, I saw, we see these Facebook groups, with these blended families and stuff. And the one that we've talked about before on our podcast before, but we talk about how people are like, I have to leave this man because his kids are horrible. His kids are horrible. And the thing is I don't doubt that kids can be horrible. Okay. Our kids have been horrible. All right. But how you're going to handle it between you and your spouse is everything. Jumping on a Facebook group, and we've talked about this on so many different levels, jumping on a Facebook group and talking about how upset you are and about how bad your stepkids are, is not the way that's not the solution. Getting with your spouse and saying, hey, this is bad for us. Like, we need to come to some type of compromise. We need to figure it out. We need to get the ugly truth out about what I'm seeing and what you're seeing. And let's talk about it. And how can we solve the problem? And it's just, the last thing you do is jump on Facebook and start sharing with everybody and bashing your spouse and bashing your stepkids and all that. Shame on you for doing that. Don't do that.
I did it in my last marriage. And that was a nuclear family. Oh, I talked bad about my husband at the time. He's now my ex, to all my friends. I always would be like, can you believe he did this? And that is like putting like a wedge. And so what makes you think in a blended family it's going to make any difference? Talking bad about your stepkids, talking bad about your husband. Now, going on to a group and saying, hey, I really need advice. Like, these groups are supposed to be support groups for you to get good advice on, to be able to say, hey, this is happening in my marriage right now. This is happening in my family. These are the things I've tried. Does anybody else have any good ideas? Because I want it to work.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's not what these posts are about. These posts are going on basically like, these kids, can you believe they did this? And can you believe that my husband allows them to do this? And all these other women, it's primarily women.
Room, taking
yeah.
it like,
they're like, yeah, you go, girl. You should leave him. Or no, hold your ground. And I'm like, that's not helping people to take their faith, family, and future to the next level.
Right.
Now, that's our MO. But that is what we should want
MO.
as human beings. We should want people to take their faith, their family, their future to the next level.
Yep.
We should want people to win, and families win together, not separate.
Yeah.
And whether you're in a blended family or a nuclear family now, you win together. You can't be bashing each other's kids, especially to other people. You just can't. You can't be bashing each other. It blows my mind. It blows my mind.
Yeah, you can't share the ugly truth with other people. You need to share the ugly truth with your spouse and say, hey, this is a safe spot. This is a safe place. It's something that we talk about in our blend framework that we go through. It's part of that. Like, you have to understand, like, you got to get to a spot in your relationship where you're like, look, I need to be honest with you about your kids. And it's not in a malicious way. It's about an honest way. And now that she may not take it right, I may not take it right, but we're able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not jumping on the phone and calling a girlfriend or a friend or calling somebody or getting on Facebook and ranting about it, because there's no solution in that. Well,
I had a friend do that earlier, and that was different. Like, she called me. A lot of my friends know how I am. I don't jump on. I'm just not going to tell you what you want to hear. I really want to do I really want to say what I feel like God would want you to do.
Yep.
And so if you are calling someone saying, hey, I really need your counsel, I really need biblical advice on this, that's what it's for. If you have a friend like that to call and say, this is how I'm feeling, and have that friend be like, listen, if you feel that way, you feel that way, but how can you move on? How can you rise above? How can you do these things? How could you go back and talk to your spouse? And you challenge them in a good way to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And Cassie, I see your, I know that you're catching it at the end, but you can go back and rewatch them, and we post them in our Christian blended couples group, and you can always rewatch them too. I know that you're saying you want to be on live, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that.
There's an alarm button too that you can hit to have on our page to let you know right when we go live. Yeah, a little bell. And Lori, thank you for saying that. Super kind words. We absolutely love doing this. We have a heart for blended families. We are a blended family, so we have such a heart. And, we're just looking to grow together in community with everybody, So, and I love that Mark says, embrace the suck. Don't share the suck.
Mark, you're so witty, man.
Sharing the suck is part of the fun. That's the problem. We like sharing all of the sucky stuff. And yes, difference between counsel and bashing. Yeah. And the thing is we feel comfort in the bashing, right? We feel like we're getting something off our chest. But the thing is,
makes us feel I'm right. That's right.
Yes. It makes you feel supported in that way. But supported is not solving the problems, Mm-mm. And so we have to make sure that we are seeking after the right counsel or the right community of people that we're sharing, that it's not just to bash or get off our chest. And the first person we should always consult with is our spouse. Always first. Always first. Not our girlfriends, not our mothers, not our fathers, not... and I know that's a thing for women. They normally have really close relationships with their moms, and they're like, oh man, my husband, and his kids, and the mom's going to stick up for you. Like, go to your husband first, go
to your husband's mom and then see.
Talk bad about him. See how that works out for you. I said it, but I don't have any notifications on my phone for Facebook, or my phone goes crazy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so that's all we got for tonight. The ugly truth of being a step parent is, just like Christy said, it's ugly. It's hard, and don't expect for everything to get peachy keen in 6 months or 18 months or even 6 years is tough. We
still run into tough things after 11.
Yeah,
we still sometimes will be like,
with almost all adults.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Are we gonna really go down this path again? I'm not even.
Sometimes we just keep traveling down it. And us guys, right? We're just big dumb animals. We'll keep going back and forth and think we've never been there before. And then the women are just like, this guy's a complete idiot. But they don't usually say that because they're kind.
No.
So. All right. So feeling powerless, judging their kids, and compromise, whether you like or not, through grit teeth. So that's all we got for tonight. Next Tuesday, 7 p.m. We'll be here live. Cassie, write it on your arm. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.